Just kill me, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the low rumble of motorcycles that surrounded her. Fear had carved deep lines into her young face, and her hands trembled as she clutched her arms to herself, as if they could shield her from what was coming. The Hell Angels were there, their leather jackets glinting under the faint moonlight, their eyes scanning her with a mixture of curiosity, amusement, and an unspoken menace. The world around her had narrowed to this small, tense circle. Every vibration of the motorcycles, every whisper of movement in the shadows, pressed against her like a physical weight. She had expected pain, maybe even death, but she had not expected understanding. Not from them. Not tonight. Her secret, the symbol on her back, was not a mark to be flaunted. Inked months ago in a hidden place by someone she trusted, it had been her personal shield, a message only those who knew could decipher. And now, exposed by a subtle movement, it was about to change everything. The leader's gaze lingered a moment too long. Fingers traced the shape slowly, deliberately. Murmurs passed between them. Her chest heaved, heart hammering in her ribcage. This symbol, once hidden and harmless, now carried the weight of life and death. She had no idea that one small mark, hidden in plain sight, would decide her fate that night. She wasn't just a girl in trouble. She was a young life teetering on the edge, carrying secrets too heavy for someone her age. Every glance from the Hell Angels carried weight. Every pause, every subtle shift in their posture told a story she wasn't supposed to read, but couldn't help noticing. This symbol on her back wasn't merely ink. It was a story, a history, a declaration. If the wrong people understood it before she could control the narrative, it could bring her destruction. And yet, if recognized by the right people, it could save her, even empower her. Her mind raced. She had faced danger before. Narrow alleys, abandoned streets, menacing strangers, but never like this. This was life on the knife's edge, where every heartbeat mattered. Her choices, her reactions, and even a single twitch of her body could change the course of the night. Yet beneath the fear, a spark of determination burned. Perhaps, just perhaps, survival wasn't about hiding or running. Perhaps survival depended on revealing the truth at the right moment, in the right way. And as the cold night air pressed down around her, she realized she was about to test that theory. She had grown up knowing how to disappear in plain sight. Life in her neighborhood had taught her early that attention was dangerous and curiosity deadly. Streets that appeared quiet were alive with unseen threats. Her parents tried to shield her from the harsh realities, but circumstances had a way of teaching lessons no one prepared her for. By age 12, she had already learned to move silently, to anticipate danger and to mask her emotions. The world had shown her that weakness invited harm. She became adept at reading people, at noticing subtle cues, the tilt of a head, the flicker of an eye, the tone of a voice. The symbol on her back was her own choice. Hidden beneath clothing, it was more than ink. It was a talisman, a silent protector. Few knew its meaning, and fewer still could understand the history it represented. It linked her to family and events long past, a lineage of resilience and defiance that few outside her inner circle could grasp. Her early life was punctuated by trials that would have crushed others. Teachers who ignored her cries for help, friends who betrayed her trust, strangers who judged her harshly, all had reinforced the lesson that survival required cunning, courage, and discretion. She learned to navigate the shadows, to step lightly in a world that was rarely forgiving, and to find small victories in silence. Despite the hardships, she had moments of joy, books she devoured in stolen hours, fleeting friendships that lasted only a season, laughter shared under dim streetlights. These moments were brief, but they reminded her that life could hold beauty even in darkness. And yet, nothing had prepared her for the night she stumbled into the Hell Angels' territory. She had faced danger before, yes, but nothing like this. The group before her was known for brutality and unpredictability. The streets themselves seemed to hush in anticipation of what would unfold. She remembered the day she had first inked the symbol on her back. It had been a quiet act of defiance, a personal claim over her body and identity. She had pressed herself against the cool wall of a hidden studio, hands trembling as the needle traced the pattern she had chosen. Pain had surged, but with it came a strange exhilaration, a sense of power, of ownership. That ink had become a secret armor, something no one could touch without her consent. Now, exposed in the most dangerous moment of her life, that secret armor was being tested. Her mind raced as the group encircled her. She knew that the wrong reaction, the slightest tremor of fear, could cost her dearly. And yet she also understood something fundamental. The symbol had the power to change the rules of the game. It had survived her secrecy. Now it could dictate the terms of her survival. As the motorcycles growled softly in the night, the young girl tightened her grip on her arms. She would not flee. She would not beg. She would let her secret speak for her. Because tonight her courage and that hidden symbol might just save her life. The motorcycles had stopped, engines fading into a low hum, but the weight of their presence remained, heavy and almost tangible. Shadows stretched long under the pale moonlight, flickering across her face and the symbol on her back. Each man's gaze felt like a physical force pressing against her, weighing her down, testing her resolve. She tried to steady her breathing, slow it to a human rhythm, but adrenaline surged like a tidal wave through her veins. She had survived countless dangers before, yet this, the predatory curiosity of the Hell Angels, was something entirely different. It was calculated, methodical. They weren't just waiting to see if she would run. They were trying to see if she would break. One of the men, older, with a scar running down his cheek, stepped forward. The leather of his jacket creaked with every movement. "Who do we have here?" he asked, voice low, almost casual, but the weight behind it made her stomach tighten. A cruel smirk curved his lips. Yet there was a spark of something else. Interest, perhaps, or surprise. Her hands trembled slightly as she instinctively turned her back, trying to shield the symbol. It was a defensive gesture, but it revealed more than she intended. The faint light caught the ink, tracing the pattern for anyone willing to notice. And they noticed. A hush fell over the group. The older man leaned closer, finger hovering over the ink. The murmur of voices behind him softened, replaced by a tense silence. Her heart raced, but fear was no longer the dominant emotion. This was something else. Anticipation, uncertainty, a fragile hope that perhaps her secret might serve her rather than betray her. "What is this?" another man asked, voice quieter, almost reverent. Their laughter, once a threat, had vanished. She felt eyes on her back, analyzing, interpreting, understanding. She realized, in a dizzying flash, that her carefully guarded secret was no longer just hers. It had power here. The older man's face hardened slightly, but not in anger. Recognition softened the lines of menace. "You've carried this alone?" he asked, voice low, almost incredulous. "Yes," she whispered. Her throat was tight, words fragile. "I couldn't risk it falling into the wrong hands." The group exchanged glances, tension still present, but it had shifted. Fear had not vanished, but curiosity and respect now edged it. She realized that the symbol had rewritten the rules. The very thing she thought might be her undoing had become her shield. Her mind raced as the seconds stretched, thick and heavy. She remembered her childhood lessons, how to move quietly, how to read people, how to hide and survive. None of it prepared her for this, the dangerous intersection of recognition and power. She had always been cautious, always hidden, but now she had to rely on the courage she had honed in silence for years. Her pulse was a drumbeat in her ears. She thought of every step that had led her here. The dark alleys, the whispered warnings from friends long gone, the moments of danger that had taught her to trust her instincts. And now it all came down to this. The symbol, once a secret, was about to decide her fate. Could they be trusted? Could they see her not as prey, but as someone with value? The uncertainty twisted inside her, threatening to paralyze her, but she forced herself to stay upright, to face them with whatever dignity she could muster. Survival demanded it. The older man straightened, stepping back for a moment as if to let the truth settle in. His eyes softened, no longer menacing but contemplative. The group's murmurs quieted, replaced by a strange reverence, a recognition of something beyond their understanding. "This," he said slowly, "this is more than a mark. It's a history, a warning, a promise. Her breath caught. She had never thought of it as a weapon, but suddenly she understood its gravity. It wasn't just personal. It carried lineage, meaning, and consequences. She had been invisible for so long. But now, the world had seen her, not for her vulnerability, but for the strength she carried quietly beneath the surface. She spoke softly, her voice trembling but determined. It's my family's symbol. It represents loyalty, survival, and truth. I have hidden it for years, but I never forgot what it stands for. The leader's gaze held hers, sharp and calculating. He seemed to weigh every word, every gesture. Finally, he nodded slowly. You've carried this alone, and survived. That alone speaks more than words ever could. The group exchanged looks, some thoughtful, some awed. The tension that had gripped the night shifted subtly, replaced by a new dynamic. Fear no longer dominated the space. Understanding had crept in. The symbol had changed the rules, forcing even hardened men to pause, to reconsider, to respect what they had once ignored. For the first time in her life, the girl realized that survival wasn't always about fleeing or hiding. Sometimes it was about revealing a truth at precisely the right moment. The ink on her back, once a secret burden, had become her leverage, her protection, her power. Her pulse slowed slightly, though the adrenaline remained. Danger was not gone, but she now faced it on her own terms. She had learned, through hardship and trial, that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. And tonight her courage had been rewarded. As the night stretched on, she felt a strange sense of release. She had faced the unknown, had confronted fear in its rawest form, and had survived. Her secret, her symbol, had not betrayed her. It had saved her. And in that realization, she understood something profound. Power was not always physical. Sometimes it lived in the hidden truths we carry, the secrets we guard, and the courage we summon when the world demands it most. The night that had begun with fear and uncertainty gradually began to shift. The tension that once seemed unbreakable began to give way to something quieter, heavier, and infinitely more powerful. Justice. It wasn't the loud, vengeful justice she had imagined in her darkest moments. It was a subtle, patient reckoning, delivered not with fists or weapons, but with recognition, respect, and the truth. The Hell Angels, notorious for their ruthlessness, now regarded her differently. The symbol on her back, once invisible, had rewritten the balance of power. Decisions were made in hushed tones, measured words replacing threats. She listened, trying to gauge whether the danger had truly passed, or if this was merely a pause, a reprieve in a storm that had yet to break. Some of the men, those who had been ready to harm, stepped back. Others, who had underestimated her, recalculated their assumptions. Every glance, every small gesture carried weight. In the silence between words, she felt a profound lesson settle within her. Justice does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers quietly, through understanding, through recognition, and through the courage of those who act in the moment when no one else will. She realized the symbol on her back had served as a shield and a mirror, reflecting both her inner strength and the hidden truths of those who surrounded her. The danger, once immediate and crushing, had been tempered by the revelation of truth. The very thing that had made her vulnerable had become the instrument of balance, and in that balance, she found safety. By the time the first pale light of dawn began to pierce the night sky, the group had dispersed. The silence that followed was not empty. It was purposeful, measured, and in its own way respectful. She had survived. The injustice that had hung over her like a shadow had been mitigated, not by force but by truth and courage. And in that quiet, she felt the power of standing firm, of revealing the truth even when every instinct screamed to hide. The days following that night were slow, deliberate, and introspective. The world returned to a quieter rhythm, and she began to notice the subtle ways her life had changed. She moved through her environment with a newfound confidence. The shadows that once seemed threatening, now mere obstacles easily navigated. The symbol on her back, once a secret hidden beneath layers of clothing and caution, became a quiet emblem of resilience. It reminded her of the night she had faced imminent danger and survived, of the power contained in her courage and the truth she carried. What had once been a burden now stood as proof of endurance, a token of survival that strengthened her with every glance in the mirror. Healing was not instantaneous. She experienced restless nights, flashbacks of fear, and the lingering sense of vulnerability that comes from facing life-threatening situations. Yet she also felt growth, a subtle expansion of self-awareness that reshaped her understanding of strength. She realized that survival was not about brute force alone. It was about understanding, patience, and the ability to act decisively in critical moments. Her relationships began to shift. Friends who had drifted returned, cautiously at first, drawn by the quiet strength they sensed in her. She learned to trust selectively, understanding that vulnerability could coexist with power. She discovered a deeper empathy for those who had faced danger alone, and a determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. The symbol, etched into her skin, became a quiet mantra: endure, reveal, survive. It was no longer just her secret. It was her shield, her story, and her lesson. And as she walked through streets that had once seemed perilous, she felt a rare clarity. She had navigated the darkest corners of fear and had emerged intact. The night of terror had left its mark, but it had also left a gift: the knowledge that courage and truth could be more powerful than violence or intimidation. Sometimes, the smallest mark carries the greatest weight. A hidden truth, a secret carefully guarded, can shift the course of events when revealed at the right moment. The girl had walked into danger thinking she was powerless, yet she emerged not only alive but transformed, stronger, wiser, and more aware of the inner reserves of courage she had carried all along. Her story reminds us that fear is temporary, but courage endures. Justice is not always loud. It often comes quietly, through recognition, understanding, and action rooted in truth. Secrets, when revealed at the right time, can protect, empower, and change lives. So never underestimate the power of who you are. Every hidden truth, every small mark, every moment of courage matters. You may not realize it yet, but your story, your resilience, and your truth can alter everything, if only you dare to reveal them.